Well, hello there and welcome. My name's Ritchie and it's good to have you here with us. Over the next 30 minutes, I'm going to be taking a deep dive here on the Open Door Show into the world of small scale property development. And as always, we're going to have a bit of fun talking about what's coming up, what the opportunities are, maybe what to look out for. Above all, most importantly, I want you to enjoy this. I want you to get some knowledge out of it. Sit back, relax, and take it all in. What am I going to be talking about on today's show? Well, no guests today. I wanted to talk about what's happening, where the opportunities are, what we should be thinking of in 2024 for the small scale property development market. So here we go. Let's have a chat. Let's have a think about this. So what do I think is going to happen? Well, I think the most important thing, let's have a look back. Let's have a look back at 2023 and what was going on. Well, there were some great opportunities out there. And I think one thing to say about small scale property development, generally, the opportunities are always there. It's just a matter of how you approach them and how you take them on board. And yes, absolutely. Sometimes, some months, some years, the opportunities are greater than others. And when those times happen, that's the time really to get involved. That's the time to jump in, because I'm going to tell you straight off the bat, and those that know me will hear me say this quite a lot, there is risk. You can lose money in property development. I was at a show actually back end of last year at an exhibition doing a talk. And a lady came up to me after my talk and she said, "Hey, you're the second talk I've listened to today on property development." And she said, "I want to listen to some more. I want to chat to you guys more." She said, "Because I've been over there, wherever over there was." She said, "I've been over there listening to someone else." And she said, they were saying there's no risk. I can guarantee, this is what they told her, you won't lose any money in property development. It's risk-free if you do it in the right way. Well, whether she was at a hot dog stand or buying a coffee, I've no idea. But no self-respecting property educator will probably tell you there's no risk. And certainly I won't. There is risk in property development. Yes, you can make 100, 200, 300,000 pounds. I've actually got a couple of students who are making over £1 million or projected to on their first project. I mean, how about that? That is something significant. But all of those upsides come with a potential, so it has to be managed downside. There is risk. So it's about managing that risk, and that is so important for us. But looking back at 2023, was it a good year for property developers? Well, yes, it definitely was. Some of the students I've just been talking about there and others who are making 200, 300, 400,000 pounds have done so in 2023. The market is there. The opportunity is there. If you've heard me talk about this before, I'm just going to repeat this again. Those that haven't heard it, it'll be new to you. Is that the opportunity in the marketplace for this business model, being small scale property development, is huge. We're supposed to deliver over 300,000 houses, over 300,000 to the population in this country, and we don't deliver anywhere near that. It's less than 150,000. So the point I always make is pretty much every year for the last 10, 15 years, and probably for the next 10, 15 years, because we never reach those targets, there are always more customers than there are products to buy, products being the homes, the houses that you and us can go out there and develop. And that's 150,000 short at the moment. I mean, because it was 150,000 last year and the year before, it's now 300, 450, 600, and so on. So the demand for housing in this country is huge. And my word, do we need it? Of course we do. Of course we do. So actually, the opportunity is always there. It's just what else is going on that makes it better or makes it worse, makes it easier, makes it more difficult? Well, in 2023, there was a lot happening, wasn't there? There was a lot of unsettlement. And I think that unsettlement, that disruption in the world sometimes puts us off. Perhaps more often than not, it puts a lot of us off. Maybe you're one of those. Are you one of those people that were, keen to do something in 2023, but the world as a whole was a little bit uncertain? So what do we have going on? Well, what about the war in Ukraine? And I mean, my word, it's not over yet, is it? But that was going on. And there definitely were a lot of people, myself included, who were not only massively concerned for all the people in Ukraine that were at the end of this and having to take this and deal with it. And there's hundreds and thousands of people that's being killed. But obviously, we're all concerned for our own safety. And this, and as the press and the media like to put out, or certain parts of the media, is this Russian march across Europe, which obviously is a potential reality, or could have been. And so it generates a concern. And of course, then interest rates. What was happening with interest rates? And was there going to be was there going to be a major problem out there? Were they going to go up huge amounts? Well, actually, back in my day, when I first got married, I often look back, and my wife and I remember when we bought our first property, actually, we had interest rates of 16%. We ended up with negative equity. We survived. We got through that. As many of you out there probably remember the same. If you're a similar age to me, you might remember those 16%. What did we go up to last year? Well, 5-ish, something like that, 5 or 6%. It was settling. Yeah, lots of interest rate rises, and massively up from, sort of December 21 at 0.1%. And obviously, a huge amount, of course, unsettlement or pain for people that are carrying those mortgages on their portfolios, or having to remortgage on their own properties or on their own tracker rates. Yeah, it's big numbers, but not as big as it was when it was 16%. But of course, it was the unknown. It was the unknown. Were we going to be into recession? How deep was that recession going to be? And certain parts of the media, what role do they play? Well, they play a scaremongering role, don't they? If I'm a little bit cynical, because that news sells. When a paper splashes all across it, a certain media, tabloid or whatever says, yes, we're going into recession, or, Putin's march is going to be halted. Well, people pick up the paper and listen, don't they? They pick up that paper and listen, as we all do. And that unsettlement, I think, is the thing which causes us to stand still and not take that jump. And I know for a lot of people out there listening today here in 2024, you probably wanted to do something different in 2023. There's no doubt you felt that pinch of that, this cost of living crisis. And I've no doubt you're still feeling it, especially after we've all done Christmas and lived a little bit to excess, as we all do. But I think that concern, that unsettlement was there, and maybe you're one of these. I mean, are you one of these people that didn't do anything in 2023? Whether it's property, I'm assuming it probably was something in property because you're here on a property podcast, or was it something else? Maybe it was a combination of both. Maybe it was building in property your portfolio, starting to build a portfolio of buy-to-lets, or getting into HMOs or service departments. Or maybe for quite a number of you, because obviously propertyCEO is all about development, it was going to start your journey in development and you probably put it off. And I don't blame you. I don't blame you. The world was unsettled. And when we're in uncertainty, we don't move. We don't move. So what's happening in 2024? That's what I'm going to talk to you about today. And hey, look, I'm not going to give you lots of stats. I'm not going to give you lots of theory. I'm not an expert, okay? I'm not an economist. There's loads of stuff I don't understand. I'm just a simple bloke that's been in this industry over 40 years. I'm going to give you my opinion as I see it. And I like to bring things down to a straightforward level of common sense. That's what I like to have a look at. And I'm just going to give you some ideas, some common sense thoughts, and you can make your own mind up. It's not for me to tell you whether 2024 is the year that you start in small scale property development. I don't know. Is it, isn't it? But let me give you some thoughts. Let's think about that unsettlement, because it was real and it was unsettled. No one knew. I mean, I could have been sat here now. We could have had interest rates at 15, 16%. We could have had a deep recession, could still be in it. We could have had, Putin marching across Europe towards us. So, and thankfully we haven't. But there's still people suffering, of course. But let's think about that. And I'm not saying this is right or wrong. In fact, it's completely wrong. But where's the media reporting on Ukraine? Have a think about it. What happened with that? The media's, and they haven't forgotten it, but it's not great news. And I sat there just recent weeks, and there's this post office scandal. You've probably seen that at the time of recording this. This was all going on. You might be listening to this recording later in the year, but actually, the Alan Bates versus the post office, which was fascinating, and I certainly. My family and I, we watched the documentaries, and they were fascinating. And what a mess that was in, and what a scandal the government and the post office were in. Right old mess. But actually, isn't it interesting? And I'm not belittling that, because there were some people that took their lives because they just couldn't cope with it, and there's many lives that were ruined. But I said to my wife, isn't it interesting that there was a brief visit, I think, by Rishi Sunak out to Ukraine, and that made the news, but nothing else does. And so we've got all these people continuously being killed in Ukraine. And we're talking about Mr. Bates versus the post office. And they're all newsworthy, but as the media forgot Ukraine, and I think one thing I think is probably the case, and I certainly it's not lost from my mind, and for many of you it's probably not, but that concern for a lot of people, the Ukraine situation is under control. Well, is it? Probably not for the Ukrainians. There's still a huge amount of fear, but from a media unsettlement perspective, it's under control, still there. And of course, the war in Israel. What a horrific nightmare that is. And in some ways, maybe that's overtaken the media coverage of Ukraine. But it was interesting. And again, I spoke to a few people about this and quite surprised, but in a way not surprised. A few people said, yeah, Middle East, Israel, Gaza Strip, same old. Well, I mean, is it the same old? I know that's an unsettled region of this world. For a long time, it has been for years, and unlikely to settle down anytime soon. A lot of religion involved, and who's right, who's wrong? I've no idea. I'm just going to sit there in the middle. But clearly, it's a horrific time. Anyone gets killed in a war, it's just not right, and it needs to be sorted. But I think a lot of people are less concerned about that. Yeah, we've seen that, and it's. I'm just trying to tell you how it is. It's certainly not my opinion, but that's what people get. So the Ukraine war, the Israeli Gaza Strip, it's sort of, well, okay, it doesn't unsettle people as much. And now in 2024, the Ukraine situation doesn't as much. And people then are sending out petitions and more interested in Alan Bates and the post office, which again is not wrong, but it's less unsettling for you starting a new career, a new business in 2024. And because those interest rates have settled down, they've got to a point where they're not scaremongering. The media's not scaremongering that now. It's not news headlines. Yes, it might be as things tweak and the Bank of England changes the rates, and it's not where they want it to be. Inflation's not where it wants to be. But it's sort of where it is. And I remember back when it was 16%. And, when that was 1990, and when it was 16%, well, we settled into it. I mean, I do remember we just, newly got married, my wife and I, and we were in this property and the interest rates were rocketing up. And we can only just afford, it's a little 2 up, 2 down. We can only just afford to get into the damn thing. And these rates were going up, but they settled. We cut our cloth accordingly. I remember, just as an aside, I remember my brother-in-law and his wife coming down, my wife's sister and husband came down to see us. And he came in. I remember he sat down in the lounge in our house. And he said, where's your TV? I said, we don't have one. He said, oh, is it in a fancy cupboard behind the wall or something? I said, we don't have a TV. He said, what do you mean don't have a TV? I said, we can't afford one. Interest rates were at 16%. He and my wife's sister, they got married a few years earlier. So they settled into this a little bit, had a couple of pay rises. But we literally just moved in and the rates went right up. And so we didn't have a TV. We cut our cloth accordingly. We didn't have, no mobiles, no internet in those days. Unbelievable, isn't it? I think the internet's the future, by the way. But look, yeah, we had to cut our cloth and we settled into it. So, it became a norm for a while. And I suppose maybe what I'm thinking here is that the interest rates have become a bit of a norm. Okay, they are what they are. You adjust, you settle down, and I've no doubt, and I'm not suggesting for a minute out there's a lot of you that aren't struggling. You probably are. But maybe that's why you're listening, because you want to do something different. And I think interestingly, 2024 for me, with some of those unsettling things that we had in 2023, they're less unsettling. They're more known. However scary they still might be, they're known. And so the fear factor, it subsides. It comes down a little bit. So if you think about that, and I don't know how you feel. Just think about it. How do you feel? And I'm not saying whether you're for the war here in Ukraine or Israel, and I know there's a whole lot of politics around that. Forget what your political positioning is, or whatever you think of Mr. Bates and the post office, and who's at fault there, and should that lady hand back her whatever she got, OBE or CBE or something, and should they pay back their bonuses? Doesn't matter. But what's your feeling? Just sit there as you're thinking. what do you feel? Are you feeling a bit more settled than you were last year? I mean, obviously, go back a few years, we're all unsettled with COVID, but that seems to be manageable, doesn't it? People have COVID. Oh yeah, you got COVID. Hey, well, hopefully you get over it soon. And you do, don't we? We get through that. That's less unsettling. I know that's a few years ago, but we're all scared, weren't we, in those times? And so scared for not maybe just ourselves, but certainly relatives and older relatives and family around us. But where are we thinking? What's your view? What's your view on where you sit now? Do you feel pretty settled? Do you feel, yeah, I'm confident? It's not where I want it to be, but it's okay. So maybe that in itself is enough for you to go, right, let's do something. Because I think one thing's for sure, life doesn't get any easier. And particularly if you look at where you are, how long do you want to wait to start what you want to start? I have a vision. I have two visions why I'm doing this. And some people, maybe this is the first time you've ever come across one of our open door sessions here, or maybe you're listening to this on podcast. I retired 13 years ago. Okay, 13 years ago, I retired. This is my retirement gig. I love doing this. And I do it for two reasons. One vision, which is an overarching vision. It's a big vision. And I want to do my bit, is to help provide housing in this country by helping bring in people like you to be small-scale property developers and help deliver some of the much-needed housing in this country. And it shocks me and it horrifies me when the news occasionally brings it on. And there was one the other week. There's a single mother, 2 kids, living in a one-bed and a one-room bed and breakfast, sharing bathrooms with 2 young kids, and she had a job. She said I had the rent prices are up, so that makes it difficult. But the rents are up because there's not enough property. If there's more property, rent prices would equalise. It's still okay for landlords; you can still make some good money out of it. But the market, we need more housing. You've only got to look around this country. We need more housing, and so part of my vision is to provide more housing. And if I can train a number of small-scale property developers in the years that I've got left, then I've done my bit to help solve some of that problem in the country. And my second vision, which is much more personal, and it's much more about you, okay? I'm doing okay. We haven't, and I'm not being conceited, but we haven't really had too much pain with the cost of living crisis. I'm lucky enough to be in a position in life where we're okay. Yeah, we cut out a few things. Of course we do, like everyone. Our heating bills are horrific. But I've not got lots of pain. And I appreciate that. And I started with nothing. I had absolutely nothing. No one ever gave me any money. So I've worked hard to get to where I've got to. But I realize as well that other people can do this. And my work over the years, either privately working with people or now part of propertyCEO, in training people, working with people, mentoring them, guiding them, supporting them to become small-scale property developers, changes people's lives. And so if you're out there and you're one of those people that want to change your life, and it's hard work, so don't bother going on this journey, whether it's with me or whether it's with anyone, if you're not prepared to put the hard work in. It's not a lottery ticket thing. It's not, yay, let's get rich quick. No, this is hard work. Boy, have I worked hard over the years. I don't work as hard as I used to, but I'm a lot older. Forgive me, give me a break. But out there right now, if you're going to feel that pinch of that cost of living. And if you're thinking about, well, what are my pension provisions? What do I have? Because £1 million pension pot doesn't buy you, Google it, doesn't buy you a lot of money. And probably a lot of you have got nowhere near £1 million in the pension pot. So you probably need a couple of million. And is that out of reach? No, it's not. It's not. If you start now, you can do something. You can get somewhere. You could build a £2 million pension pot or more out of small-scale property development on the fact that most small-scale developments will yield you, say, 200,000, let's say 150. Well, 10 years, you could do one project. You could, a year, you could earn £1.5 million. And maybe compared to what, or add to what you've got, that's enough. So you can change your life. You can do it. And that, for me, is great. The fact that the opportunity exists, because we go back to Ukraine and Israel and many other places in the world, do they have those opportunities? They don't. They're fighting for survival. You're not. You've got an opportunity here to fight for a better place, to get somewhere better. You can put your energies into getting into a better place. And it's 2024 the year. I say you've got to make your own mind up on how you feel. But the opportunity exists. The marketplace, as I said right at the top of today's show, is there for small-scale developers. It's definitely there. Okay. But could you become one? And is it the right time? Well, you can definitely become one. Okay. If you've got something about you, we always say you need 4 skill sets. Management skills. Have you got those in what you do? Organizational skills. Can you organize things? Do you do that in your existing job? Decision-making skills. Can you decide when to start, when to stop, when to go, when not to? And people skills. What do you like with people? Because fundamentally, it's a people business. You got those 4 skill sets. You can do this. You can become. Trust me, it's hard work. Okay, so if you're not prepared for hard work, don't even bother. Go for the lottery ticket. But if you're prepared to put that effort in, you can get there. You can start earning those 6-figure sums. And I think 2024 is a really interesting year to do so, because those sun settlements we've talked about are out the way. But let's think about the government election. Again, doesn't matter what your political views are, where you sit, but something's going to happen. Okay, so we're expecting an election in 2024. So what's going to happen? Conservatives going to stay in? Who knows? Maybe. Is Labour going to come in? Who knows? Maybe. Liberal Democrats? Who knows? Monster Raven? Who knows? But something's going to happen. There's going to be a change. Okay, and whether that change is literally more of the same, that's a change. We've had the election, we go through it, and whatever the country votes, that's what we get. So think about it. What are all the political parties, particularly the major political parties, going to be doing the rest of this year leading up to a general election? What are they going to be doing? They're going to be putting down all the feel-good factors about them and what they can do. Yes, they'll be all rubbishing the opposition, because that's what they're supposed to do in politics, and we get a bit tired of that, don't we? But what we're really interested to hear is, what are Conservatives going to do? And of course, Conservatives have got the opportunity, because they're in power, to absolutely maximize out on the delivery of all of their manifesto that they put forward. And remains to be seen on how well they do or don't do. But that's what they're going to do. So all they're going to be doing is feel-good stuff. They're not going to be making major decisions, one would expect, I'm going to suggest, cutting things, making unpopular decisions leading up to a general election. Are they? Probably not. They're going to do stuff to make us feel good. What are Labour and Liberal Dems and whoever else could be in opposition, whatever your political party is, okay? Well, they're going to be telling you how good they're going to be and how wonderful they're going to be and all the things they're going to do. Yes, they're going to rubbish the opposition, but this wave of positivity in politics always happens to a greater extent as we lead up to election. I mean, do you agree with that? It does, doesn't it? So 2024 is likely to have a wave of positivity from politics, and it's going to have some mixed reaction from our media, okay, whatever that would be, and that remains to be seen. It's like it's like a theatre, isn't it? It's like a drama that gets played out over the year. I mean, at least we're not as bad as in America. So, I mean, that all plays out on a different level, a different stage. So what's then going to happen? Because I think this is me. I'm just being practical. As I say, I just come from let's look at, let's look at, the economy and economics. And no, let's just be practical. What's going to happen when anyone takes over a new business? When any managing director comes in and acquires a new business, and I've done it, I've bought businesses, new broom sweeps clean. Yeah, the old saying, new broom. So a new managing director comes into a company and you have to make changes. And I bought some companies and I think, they're running pretty well. But you have to make changes for change's sake. Because if you come in and you don't make changes, you don't make an impact. And what's happened to that new MD? There's a company I know. And they took on an MD. We never really saw him. Didn't see any changes. It was business as usual. And to some extent, some people were saying, yeah, that's because the business was functioning great and he's working behind the scenes. No, I want an MD that's going to make an impact, that business then feels like it's got a new energy, a new life, a new momentum, either as a customer, because I'm buying their products, or as an investor, because I'm investing in them, or as an employee, because I'm working in them. Does that make sense? It's logical, isn't it? You want that new energy. So the government running this country is a business. I mean, it's not a job I'd want, not a business I'd be interested in by any means, whatever you paid me. No, thank you. But obviously there's plenty of politicians who would love to run this business, the business of running this country. So not only is there going to be a feel-good factor, in my opinion, this year leading up to the election, because that's what they all want, what happens whoever gets in charge? Either Conservatives remain in charge with current leader or new leader, one of the two. Labour get in, with the current leader or new leader, Libs current. Do you know what I'm saying? What are they going to do? Well, new broom sweeps clean. They're going to make changes. Their first year is going to be full of momentum and positivity because they want to look back and tell the electorate, and why not? Look at what I've done. Look at the changes I've made. Look what we have done. This is why we needed to be here. And normally that first impression counts. First impression of a managing director coming in and running a company. And have you experienced that? Yeah, maybe a few of you experienced a new boss coming in, new department leader. And your first impression of them, that's what sticks, isn't it? That's what counts. So that's what's going to happen in the government. So what does that tell me? And again, I'm just being practical. It tells me that almost certainly 2025 is going to be another year of positivity. Now, various things could happen. We might have inflation running out of control, and they're going to try and bring it back under control. But the messaging and the efforts are going to be focused on positivity, I would suggest. Do you agree? Not agree. If you agree, you can see that adds to a great opportunity in 2024 to get into the marketplace, because there's a great place to start a new business after everyone's been doom and gloom, and then everyone starts to pick up. But you've got to get in first. Okay. Now, to be honest, you could start property development 2 years ago, 3 years ago, in a recession, in COVID, 5 years' time, and you'll do well out of property development. But if you want to get going and you want a bit of a head start, well, think about getting in and get going before everyone else. Because I'm pretty certain we as a business here at propertyCEO, that's what we do. We train small-scale property developers. That's what we do with my business partner, Ian Child. And we're already starting to see some momentum. Okay, back end of last year, already some positive vibes. We've just done an exhibition, just as I record this, and we just had the best results ever out of that exhibition of people wanting to come on a 3-day event with us. Best results ever. And that particular exhibition is not normally the strongest. And that is in January. So the momentum, I think, is there. So in lots of ways, as this sea of positivity comes through, which I believe it's going to, then's the time to get ahead of that wave that's coming in. And then what else have we got? Because there's more stuff. You're thinking, no more, is there more stuff? Well, look, we've already got some fantastic permitted development rights. And I'm not on today's show trying to explain what permitted development rights are or steer you towards them, but they are a short circuit and they cut through the planning system. Because the planning system in this country is broken. It's a mess. And it's the system we have to go into to get the change of use of a building, say from commercial to turn it into residential, or to get permission to build on some land, some nice residential properties. And because it's residential is the property stock that we want, because we're not building enough houses, that's generally where small scale developers start their trade. That's where they cut their teeth, okay? Because you can make some really big profits, as I've talked about earlier on today's show. So the planning system's broken. So the government over the last few years has put in some terrific, really powerful permitted development rights. And there's a whole host of buildings that we can convert. We have the rights to convert. Yes, there are some boxes to tick. Yes, there are some forms to fill in. And is it always black and white? No, there's a few shades of grey. And is there risk? Yes, there is. Of course there is. And you know there is. No one expects to be listening to this thinking, yes, I can go and make £200,000 with no risk. As the lady did who saw me speak in London the other week, and she, for Christmas, and she said, someone over there said there's no risk. But yes, there's risk. Okay, there's risk. But it's about minimizing the risk. Take away the unknowns. Take away the requirement to have to go in for a planning application, because that is big risk. That's uncertainty. You could be waiting for a year to get your planning application, but this route, the permitted development route, is all about time. It's about certainty, and it's about 56 days. 56 days, if you put your application in and your application is received and your application is not approved or rejected in 56 days, you can carry on. And this is what the government wants. This is what central government wants, because they want us to deliver housing. Us, okay? Small-scale developers. This is not for Barratt's, Persimmon, Bellways. This is for you. They need people, particularly to deliver the small housing. A small-scale development is between 5 and 20 units, and that's my definition. It's not an industry definition. Small-scale development for me is 5 to 20 units. Below 5, that's where the local builders play. You can't compete with them. Above 20, that's where the regional builders are. You've probably seen them round and about. Way above that is your nationals, your Barretts, your Persimmons. But those nationals and those regional players, they're not interested in taking an old shop and converting it into 4 flats, 5 flats, 6 flats. They're not interested in taking an old industrial building and turning it into 15 flats. They're not interested in taking an empty bank building. And my word, there's loads of them empty, fantastic buildings to convert, and putting that into, say, a dozen flats, are they? But you are. Because Barretts and Persimmons won't get out of bed for £200,000. But for you, that would be life-changing, wouldn't it? 200,000 profit. And that's why the government know this. They want to encourage people like you to come back, because there used to be 30%, nearly just under 30% of all housing stock was delivered by people like you, small scale developers, just delivering a dozen units a year, dozen houses, dozen flats. And that's gone down to 12%-ish, less than 12%. So the government want us back. They want you back. And funding is readily available. It's not a block. There's plenty of money out there. Yes, it helps if you've got some of your own, but if you haven't, is it possible? Yes, it is. It's just a bit harder. But hey, it's all about hard work. So those permitted development rights are there, and they're there to help us. Okay, and we can convert banks, light industrial buildings, shops, cafes, gymnasiums, health centres. It goes on. And what we're expecting at some point this year is an increase in that list. Hotels, guest houses, B&Bs. Have you seen empty ones of those around, or little buildings not performing? Loads of them. They are, I think, a big game changer in 2024. And that news was coming through last year. So there are definitely people who are looking at this as a major additional support in the opportunities in getting into small scale development. They see it as their chance to build that opportunity and minimize that risk, because there's more buildings we can look at. And is it difficult to find buildings? Yes, it is hard work. It's all hard work. But there's various things happening. Okay. There used to be a rule that we could convert. There's a permitted development right where we could take a shop and we could put 2 flats above it. Well, the government are proposing this year and now be 4 flats. It doubles the amount. There's lots of other things going on as well. So the opportunities in 2024 from the government are increasing. And of course, the question that I was asked this several times last year, and I've no doubt it'll be several times this year, but to put it out for you folks now that's listening, what's going to happen if Labour come in? What's going to happen if the Liberal Dems or whoever? I don't think anything. Yes, they're going to tweak the edges. They're going to play around with it. They're going to say what the Conservatives did was not effective, and they're going to create some of their own rules. But broadly, they've got 2 choices, they being a party that comes in, if that's to be the case. They've either got to fix the planning system, which no government's been able to do for many, many years, and I think the situation's got worse, so that's out, or they've got to use permitted development rights. So I think although there's noise around this from Labour and the Liberal Democrats, the reality is there's no other tools. They've really got those 2 tools. So I think it's going to stay. Permitted developments are going to stay. Are they going to be tweaked and played around with? Yes, they probably will. Are the rules going to be tightened up? Almost certainly. That's some of the noises that Labour are making, that the Conservatives have let the whole thing run riot. Whether they have, whether they haven't, it's entirely up to you what your political opinion is. But they might tighten up, but so what? They're not going to stop us building housing. And if it tightens the rules up a little bit, as the Conservatives have done with bringing in adequate natural light, the rules always get enhanced. That's not a bad thing. Let's deliver quality housing in this country. That's what we should be about. And that's not a bad thing, because it sets the level playing field. I don't mind if they tighten the rules up, because we're all working on the same rules. So you coming in as a new developer will be working on the same rules as someone like me that's been in this industry for many, many years. That's fair. That's a level playing field. So I think it will stay. I don't see it disappearing. I don't see any government taking away permitted development rights in the short term. Certainly the next 4 or 5 years. So if we piece all that together, that's just my state of the nation. Am I backing it up with lots of science? I'm not going to sit and trawl through lots of stats and figures and show you lots of graphs, and many will. And I applaud that. But actually, let's just have an opinion. I've got a great friend of mine. He is so knowledgeable on this stuff. It's unbelievable. And he could bring up graphs and charts and all sorts of things and all sorts of statistics. And I think he's got about 2 or 3 degrees. Okay. And he's his view on the economy and the world economy is terrific. And he could spout for an hour. And then I just go, yeah, but this is the basic view of how I see it. I'm just a simple guy. Okay, that's all I am. I'm just giving an opinion. But does it resonate? Does that unsettlement that we've had feel like settlement now? Even if, what we don't like has become the new norm in what's going on in world affairs, interest rates, poor old Alan Bates and all the sub-postmasters. You feel for them, don't you? I don't know if you've watched that program. That's horrific, really. But of course, there's so many things out there like that. But I think we feel a bit more settled. Do you? I think we do. So maybe that's it. Maybe 2024 is the year that you take that leap of faith, because no one's going to do it for you. I can tell you that. If you'd like me to help you, if you'd like me to support you, if you'd like me to guide you, and I'm going to give you a little kick up the backside when you need it, I'm happy to do that. Dip your toe in the water, grab a pen and paper. I'm going to give you something to kick off your year. Okay. If this is new for you, then come and dip your toe in the water on a bit of free training. Write this down: propertyceo.co.uk/SFR. That stands for 6-figure roadmap. 6 figures in terms of the profitability you can earn. propertyceo.co.uk/SFR. It's a bit of free training, limited time, and it'll just tell you the basics of how you can start in small scale property development. Hopefully you've enjoyed it. Please like and subscribe our channel. Hopefully you've enjoyed my ramblings for 2024. Leave any comments. If you think it was horrific, just don't put those comments in. If you think it was great, let me know. I don't know what a sort of style of open door or podcast you like, but if you like these ramblings, I'll continue to do them. Thanks for listening. See you all soon. Cheers. Bye-bye.